A lot of MIDI controllers often have keys and pads. And wouldn't it be great if we could play both synths on the keys and drums on the pads, but at the same time? It's possible. And with a few quick setting changes in your DAW, you can do that too. Probably a lot better than I can. And it's possible on other MIDI controllers too, not just this Akai MPK Mini here. So today I'm going to show you how to set that up so that you can utilize your controller in a different way, control multiple instruments at the same time. Today's video is going to be sponsored by Skillshare, but we'll talk about that later. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is TAETRO, your electronic music mentor. Alright, before we get too deep into it, I want to say a quick thank you to all my channel members who have been showing up to the live streams and taking part in members only live streams, beat critiques, and enjoying their free sample packs. Shout out to all of you. If any of that interests you or you just want to support the channel, check out the join button down below and see all the perks that you can get for the 3 different tiers of membership. I think it's worth checking out. And if not, no worries, you want to support the channel in a completely free way, you can help me out by quickly just clicking the thumbs up on this video, making sure you're subscribed with notifications on, and commenting down below. Any kind of engagement helps tell the YouTube algorithm gods that my videos are worth recommending. It would mean a lot, so thank you. But now let's get into setting up your MIDI controller so you can potentially control one instrument with your keys and another instrument with your pads. Now later towards the end, I'm going to see if this works with a couple different MIDI controllers, but for now I'm going to demonstrate with my Akai MPK Mini, which I think a lot of people have and a lot of people are drawn to, and it's one of my favorites. So let's get into it. Got just a couple quick settings. Today I'm using Ableton Live, though I'm pretty confident that other DAWs have the capabilities to do what I'm about to do. I just can't quite demonstrate the settings. But even if you don't use Ableton Live, the basic principles are probably the same for your DAW, so you can still watch along. All right, so here in Ableton Live, I've already got 2 MIDI tracks loaded. One being a drum track, the other being a synth track with an arpeggiator on it. Now to play what I played in the intro, I actually had the hold function toggled on the arpeggiator, which allows me to lift my hand off the keys and play some drums, and I don't have to hold down the notes for them to continue playing. But there we encounter our problem. You notice that since the synth track is armed in Ableton Live, and when I press one of these pads, it's triggering the synth, not our drums, which is not quite what we want, which brings us to our first setting that we should change in Ableton Live. Now, maybe you already have this set this way, but Ableton Live usually comes by default under Record, Warp, and Launch with this exclusive setting. Now currently I have arm set to exclusive, which means only one track can be armed at the same time. Arm button is right down here on each track. It tells Live what track you want to be controlling with your controller. So if I arm this one here, I can play the synth. If I arm this one here, I can play the drums. Now of course I can also play the drums on the keys. But for the purposes of this, I obviously want to be able to have both of these armed so I can play both of them at the same time. But with arm set to exclusive, you see that I cannot do that. Only one of them can be armed at the same time. So all we have to do is in the preferences, under Record, Warp, and Launch, uncheck arm so that it's grayed out. You can also do this for solo. So now we see that the drum kit is armed. And we can also arm the synth. This doesn't do us a lot of good though, because I can indeed play the synth and the drums. However, you notice that me just playing this C key right here triggers the drums. And it will do that for all the drums. And if I play the pads, the synth gets triggered in addition to the drums. This is not great for trying to play the two of these at the same time, and that's because there is one more setting that we need to change to be able to pull this off, and I'm going to tell you about it right after I tell you about our sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. They have thousands of inspiring classes where you can take classes in music production, photography, video creation, and more. Skillshare is super affordable with a premium membership at just under $10 a month, but today, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to use the link in the description get a free trial of the Skillshare Premium membership. And with that free Skillshare Premium membership, you get access to all of the classes on Skillshare. Maybe you want to learn music production, but maybe you also want to learn how to make a YouTube channel and make videos like I do. You can get all those classes with the Skillshare Premium membership. A couple of classes that I think would be really great for you to check out would be the Music Theory for Electronic Music Producers class, which takes music theory but puts it in the context of a DAW, Ableton Live, and it's taught by an Ableton certified trainer. There's also the How to Mix Your Music course with Young Guru, which really helped me to take my mixes that I make in my home studio, and I'm not a mix engineer, but it helped me take those mixes to be sounding a lot more professional, and I was a lot more confident in releasing my music after taking that class and applying what I learned. So use that link in the description to get your free trial of the Skillshare Premium membership, and you'll not only be supporting the sponsor, but you'll also be supporting the channel, and you'll be able to learn something new. So check it out. But anyway, let's get back into setting up this MIDI controller situation. All right, so if you remember, we have turned off arm exclusivity, meaning that we can arm both our drum track and our synth track. However, these are not being controlled independently by the pads and keys. We have to take one more step to do this. And this is the part that you can probably replicate in other DAWs, but I'm going to demonstrate how to do it in Ableton Live, obviously. This little button here, I/O, in, out. This is actually going to help us control what MIDI channels these tracks are receiving MIDI from. MIDI controllers like this that have pads and keys send and receive MIDI on different channels, and we can actually look at those channels right now. I'm going to unarm these tracks so we don't have that annoying sound, but if I look at the all channels drop down menu and I play a key, I can see that channel 1 here is lighting up. It's receiving MIDI from channel 1 when I press the keys. Now when I press the pads, notice something different. Channel 10 is lighting up. We can use this to our advantage. This is the backbone of how this whole thing works. Because now on my drum track, if I want to control the drum track exclusively with channel 10, I can go ahead and do that. Which means that we want to control our synth track, not getting MIDI from all channels, which was the problem we were having before. We want to just get MIDI from channel 1. Now, when I arm this synth track, and arm the drum track, no sound is coming out of the drum track. It's not receiving any MIDI, even though it should be from this C key, and this E key, and this G key. But it's not, because it's only getting MIDI from channel 10, which is, of course, our pads. And then magically, we are able to actually play with our pads and our keys at the same time with two different instruments. And I've utilized this in a couple performances and beat making sessions. It's really, really useful. The other quick tip I'll give you is I actually have another MIDI controller here plugged in, my MIDI Fighter. Now the MIDI Fighter actually has a software editor like a lot of these programs do. So if I go ahead and just check this drop down menu here, it's very useful for when you're working with MIDI controllers, and I press one of the keys on the MIDI Fighter, I can see that it's lighting up channel 3. So if I wanted to control the synth with channel 3, or my MIDI Fighter, I'd set it to channel 3. But this is also useful if you want to arm numerous tracks and use numerous controllers at the same time, but not have them all get triggered from each other. You just want to have one controller controlling one sound specifically. That's how it can get useful using multiple controllers and diving into this MIDI channel setting. And I do recommend that with your MIDI controller, you check out if it has a software editor, because it's likely that you can control what MIDI channels certain keys or certain pads or certain functions of the keyboard send MIDI data on. I want to note quickly here too that you can not only select the channel that the track receives MIDI from, but you can also select the particular controller. So that's where it also comes in handy with the MIDI Fighter, because I can select what controller I want this track to specifically receive MIDI from. So the channel doesn't even matter at that point, because it will only receive MIDI from the particular controller rather than all ins or all channels, you know? On that note here, why don't we test that with a couple other MIDI controllers? I'm going to go ahead and unplug the MPK Mini and swap it out for the Mini Lab. All right, so we've got the Mini Lab plugged in, the basic first template page setting. Let's go ahead and take a look behind the curtain here. What do you know? Surprise, surprise. Channel 10 for our pads. I think that's pretty standard amongst MIDI controllers actually. And channel 1 for our keys. Channel 1 for our keys. Works perfectly with the Mini Lab as well. Let's unplug that and try that with the launch key really quick. All right, so here's the launch key. I've got to go ahead and put it into drum pad mode, and let's check the MIDI signal from the drum pads. So a little bit different here on the launch key, but I know that there's the component software that Novation has created for editing their controllers that you can definitely go ahead and change the parameters of. But it does look like it's sending from channel 2 for the pads. So for my drum track, I'll go ahead and switch that to channel 2 instead of channel 10. And how about the keys? Still channel 1. Perfect. So it's slightly different than the other two controllers, but still works, which is great to hear. So that was 3 different controllers from 3 different companies, Akai, Arturia, and Novation, and it all worked. I am willing to bet that whatever MIDI controller you have, if it has pads and keys, it's probably likely that you are able to pull off the same trick in your DAW. And if you're not using Ableton Live, you just have to take a look at how to route the particular MIDI channels into your MIDI tracks so that you can pick a specific MIDI channel for your MIDI track to receive from. So if you're looking at other MIDI controllers on the market that aren't one of these 3, I think it's highly likely that it has the ability to split the different channels depending on pads and keys. But you could probably find the manual for that MIDI controller online, and that information would be in there. So you should check it out before you buy it, if you want to be sure. But that about wraps it up for our video today. I hope that was a helpful little trick that you can start applying in your beat making sessions or live performances with your MIDI controllers. Don't forget to check out the link to our sponsor Skillshare in the description. If you support the sponsor and take advantage of the free trial, it actually helps support the channel a lot. So it would mean a lot if you check that link out. If you want to get this cool shirt, you can go to controlfreakclub.com. That's my lifestyle and apparel brand for music producers. And consider joining the channel as well. Click the join button, see what all the cool perks you can get. It's the best way to support the channel and get perks for yourself as well. We've been having a good time on all the live streams, and it's been a nice little community. I'm really enjoying connecting deeper with all the members and stuff like that. It's a good time, and any of the members in the comments can brag and tell you about it too. But for now, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. This has been TAETRO. Have a good one.